First, can you make any sense of what Donald Trump just said there?
Well, that's a tall order for anyone to try to make sense out of it. But when you hear the president of the United States sitting there, where you have black unemployment today as high as it's ever been since the recession when Barack Obama came in, and he used to brag, he being Trump, about black unemployment. Well, look at the numbers today. When you look at the fact that we have all over this country people protesting, marching about the criminal justice system, unfairness, and specifically police conduct, which he has not addressed at all. For him to even have the unmitigated gall to say that he's done as much for blacks as any president. I mean, so all that Obama did in terms of dealing with the Affordable Care Act that disproportionately helped blacks and criminal justice and on, all the way to LBJ and Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, all of that pales in comparison to what? What did Trump do? He's ignored even what is immediately happening now, and that is the clear question of how we're going to deal with policing in this country that clearly has a race problem that he has not directly addressed at all.
Rev, you are at the center of every place of action in this national conversation, and I haven't spoken to you since your address in Houston, but it was soaring, and I just wonder how you're doing. I also just interviewed Governor Cuomo, who said you were part of the reforms that New York State signed into law. You called his package of reforms, New York State's package of reforms, a model for the other 49 states. Just talk about how you're doing and how you see this moment. And I know a little bit about how you work out and what you eat, but how are you sort of pushing through and trying to grab everything that is possible to achieve now that the whole country is focused on issues you've been working on for decades?
I am challenged to try and make sure that all of what we have worked for down through the years is achieved. Otherwise, what do we do it for? And now that you have young and older people and people of different races, I'm seeing some of the rallies, some of the marches I've gone to, as many whites as blacks. Now that people have grabbed it, even though you may get tired, you say, we did it so we could get here. Now we've got to finish it, because if you don't change the laws, if you don't change the rules and see them implemented, then you did it all for nothing. And forget me, all of those unknown people, the lady at the end of the marches for years that no one ever called her name, we owe it to them to really say we didn't do this just for drama. We did it to achieve something. And when I come home from doing the eulogy in Houston for George Floyd, and then the memorial before that in Minneapolis, and see the governor of my state not only sit with a black speaker of the assembly and a black head of the Democrats in the state Senate, Andrea Stewart Cousins, and see them with Speaker Carl Hastings pass hardcore legislation. But then he goes on top of that, Governor Cuomo, and gives an executive order ordering every mayor in his state to come up with how they're going to deal with racial profiling, police brutality, and they have to sit with their community, and if they don't do it, they will not get state funds, something that I never imagined a governor would do in New York. He raised the bar today in my home state that I hope every governor says. And Andrew Cuomo and I don't always agree, but he raised the bar today, even though he knows a lot of the right and a lot of the police unions are going to attack him left, right, and center. This was a moment that we never, ever thought we would see in New York, less known a mile around the country, which gives us the strength to fight on, because we owe it to the Floyds and Eric Garners and the others. Otherwise, we shouldn't have got involved in the first place if we were not going to make something happen.
Do you think when Donald Trump plans to go to Tulsa on Juneteenth and to have his convention events in Jacksonville, that they do so knowing the pain that those dates and those places cause, or do they do so oblivious at the outset and then they find out and they stick with the plan, or do you think they're just flying blind?
It would be hard for me to believe that Donald Trump did not know what Tulsa represented when in this election cycle, Michael Bloomberg went to Tulsa, stood there in that area and talked about the Tulsa riots in 1921 and how he wants to rebuild. And as much as we all know that Donald Trump watches cable news and knows what's going on in politics, that was just a few months ago that Michael Bloomberg, someone he was very much intimidated by, went to Tulsa. So he knew exactly what that was in terms of Tulsa. And for it to be on Juneteenth Day, if he didn't know, and if his staff didn't tell him when it came up, then they ought not be in the White House. That is the height of incompetence. So it is either that he knew and didn't care, or he doesn't know and he's incompetent, or a reasonable combination of both. The fact that it is so painful on the day that we talk about how Texas finally honored the emancipation of enslaved people, and in a city that saw hundreds of blacks wiped out on Black Wall Street, and the fact that that happened in the middle of our dealing with justice for George Floyd, and he didn't rescind it, shows that he has the contempt for the community that people like me have been saying a long time. Anyone could make a mistake if it was a mistake, but you would undo it, especially in this climate. He just goes on because somehow he thinks this will help to energize his base when it really is detrimental to the spirit of the country that needs to be coming together to find some kind of justice and fairness in this time.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.